Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cooper-Trinidad? Here. Mr. Walmart? Here. Mr. Giuliano?
Here.
Mrs. Van
Here.
Mrs. Steele? Here. Mrs. Stahl is not here tonight. Mrs. Liddy?
Here.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Would you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Sussex-Wantage Regional School District Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the school building and notice of said meeting sent to the New Jersey Herald and the Star Ledger.
The Sussex-Wantage Regional School District is a responsive, caring, child-centered community. Our mission is to educate each individual to be a competent, lifelong learner, productive, and responsible citizen by providing challenging opportunities in a safe environment through a partnership with families, schools, and communities.
Thank you. At this time, we will move on to the report of the Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. I just have some concise comments for you tonight. Special thanks to Mrs. Wilson, Mrs. Demalakis, all the teachers and staff involved in our summer program. That wrapped up today. It was a huge success, had a great participation rate. School operations, as we've been reporting out for next year, we're very hopeful that we'll have generally a reasonably normal school year. We've said that before, but as always, we're continuing to monitor any additional guidance that comes out from the governor's office. As I'm sure you're aware, he's been on the news lately, kind of appears to me be hedging his statements a little bit more. And for the board's consideration, we talked about last time, we have sub-pay rates in the area that we'll continue to reflect on with the board, come up with new sub-rates, hopefully at our next board meeting. Special thanks to Ashley Sarmiento. We had some challenges in getting them from my colleagues around the county, but Ashley was able to track down those, so we appreciate that. The only other thing, Mr. D'Agostino, I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on the board candidate selection process, how you're going to go about that.
Sure. So we have 2 candidates for the vacancy on the Board of Education. We are going to ask 9 questions, and we'll ask one candidate the first question and ask the second candidate the same question, then switch it up, ask the second person the next question, and we'll just keep going through that. I think because we're going to deliberate in executive session, we'll just wait until after we approve board minutes, so that will be in about 5 minutes, not even, and we'll start the interview process. This way it's fresh in our minds for executive session. So with that being said, we will move on to audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district. Are there any audience remarks?
Everyone's going to have to excuse me because I'm not the best public speaker here.
And if you would just state your name and your town, your residency.
Sure. I'm Cheryl Fisher.
Thank you.
Cheryl Fisher, I'm from Wantage. I wanted to discuss the upcoming school year and the worry that we have toward those kids in masks. This year has been really tough on all of our kids, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It's been very unsafe for the kids, and there's been a lot of repercussions because of it. They've been made to feel that the world is a dangerous place. Being in masks 6 to 8 hours a day, social distancing, having no sports in their gym time, having temperature checks, having a lot of testing done. A lot of it is very unnecessary, and the data and the science prove it. I think that we should be focusing more on keeping these kids active being healthy, with healthy habits, eating well, focusing on their sports, eating their vitamins, exercising, enjoying their school years as children should be. While the masks seem to serve no protection, scientific studies show that they do lower oxygen levels in their blood while raising carbon dioxide levels, affecting respiratory function, actually trap and exhale viral pathogens, which increases the severity of viral load, and they collect and colonize viruses and bacteria, which are dangerous for those with asthma and other respiratory issues. This could be a major threat to a child's development due to anxiety, sleep problems, and the fear of germs. Mask wearing during high temperature days should be a no-brainer. Kids K through 8 should not be forced to wear a mask 7+ hours a day while they're sweating, getting their mask saturated, and breathing in dirty air and bacteria. Teachers have enough to be concerned with themselves than to be monitoring to see if these kids are changing their masks every hour, who has sneezed in their mask and hasn't changed to a new one. And they are not medical professionals and shouldn't be expected to monitor the children and the medical device they're being forced to wear without the parents' consent. I also wanted to make a point to voice my concern about the extreme dangerous situation we are putting our bus drivers in. My mother has been a school bus driver for 33 years. I can tell you by talking to her personally how this affects a seasoned, well-trained driver. She wears glasses and has to take shorter breaths so that her glasses don't fog up and she can see. This leads to, you guessed it, a lack of oxygen and sometimes lightheadedness. When she told her employer about it, her employer didn't want to hear about it. The engine is blowing hot air in her face for hours in the morning and the PM. Most buses do not have air conditioning. Who is going to be liable when there's a bus accident because the driver had a health-related incident due to lack of oxygen when children aren't anywhere near the driver while they're driving? Some of the COVID statistics that I found, New Jersey deaths for children aged 5 through 18 from the months of January 2020 to May 2021. There are unintentional injuries, 80. Children who have died of cancer, 40. Suicide, 37. Homicide, 32. Heart disease, 10. And COVID-19, 3. Some of the mask adverse events that have been found from pediatric nurses and doctors are headaches and migraines, dizziness, lethargy, bloody nose, skin lesions, poor attention span. All of these are being noticed from COVID-19. Of mask wearing. So in conclusion, the data provides proof in which masks benefit the children. The data that provides proof in which masks benefit the children is needed physically and medically going forward if we're going to ask this of our children in the coming months. We need to have proof that masks cause no harm to the students emotionally, mentally, and physically. We would like to see a tally from the nurse's log of the number of incidents of mask-related problems as listed above in the in-person school year. A school study that shows communication between kids, teacher, and peers have not been adversely affected by masks, and proof that children with 504s and IEPs have not declined in the school year. The Board of Education can make a return to the school plan with having masks optional, citing that parents are medical advocates for their own children, and we will be able to decide what is best for our children's health.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the board secretary certification.
Pursuant to NJAC 6A23A-16.10C3, I certify that as of June 30th, 2021, no line item account has encumbrances and expenditures which in total exceed the line item appropriation in violation of NJAC 6A23A-16.10.
Thank you. At this time, we will move on to the approval of board minutes for June 10th, 2021, regular and executive session, June 24th, 2021, special and executive session, noting the typo with June, it was not June 10th, 201. We are not that old. So if we could add this to 2021 to that. Looking for a motion, please.
I'll motion.
All right, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the board minutes? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Ms. DeWall Malafite? Yes. Mr. Giuliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Minister approved.
Thank you. At this time, we are going to do the board interviews for the vacancy on the board. If both of our candidates could just come to the front, and we're going to take turns answering the questions one at a time on the microphone, please. Young lady up front, would you like to start? Yes, you. Yeah,
Should I stand here or?
So if I could, yes, if you would stand by the microphone.
Yeah.
If I could just, the first question is if you could just tell us your name and a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Patricia Efren. I am a master prepared registered nurse. My master's is in human development, education, and counseling. It was specialty tracks in chemical dependency. I finished a 30-plus career as a registered nurse working in a variety of fields, not the least of which was chemical dependency, adolescent substance abuse, crisis intervention. What else? I was, I guess the favorite position I enjoyed was in charge of the psyche or an outside hospital. I also was in charge of the crisis unit at St. Mary's in Passaic, until it no longer, St. Mary's no longer has that, is closed, no longer functions in that capacity. I am the mother of 4 children. I'm gonna say this, my daughter Krista is living, and I have a granddaughter with her. My son Billy is living and is out in Oregon, and I have 3 young grandchildren with him. I lost my daughter Julie, who was a kindergarten teacher, studying for a master's when she was killed in an automobile accident in Wyoming, heading for a ski trip. That was about 20 years ago. My daughter Diana died 5 years ago during an outpatient surgical incident. So of the 4 children that I gave birth to, I have 2 surviving children. And I've often looked for an opportunity to somehow carry on my children's work. Julie wanted to be the principal of an inner city school system, and when she finished her master's, wanted a PhD, and wanted to work in that field. My daughter Diana was a full-time homemaker, but had a degree from Rutgers in social work. We come from my background is a caregiving background. I passed that on to my children, of which I'm very proud. Things, needless to say, things are in a bit of a upheaval right now in our country. And I feel, having lived through the pandemic, as we all have, I feel I have searched for, shall we say, a new way to serve or caregive in my life. And I happened to see this opportunity to apply for a seat on the Board of Education in Sussex County, the Sussex Regional School System. My husband and I have been a resident in Wantage for 22 years. My husband, Paul, and I moved here, and 18 months after we moved here, he died. And so I met my husband, Pete, 18 months after Paul's death, and we met and married, and we've been married for 19 years. it would sound, just on the, I could go into a lot more, it sound on the basis of what I'm telling you that, wow, what a really a series of losses and things that I've suffered. But I am, and my husband and I are both faithful Catholics, and our faith has sustained us, and we've always been active in church, being a member of St. Monica's for, since, in fact, we were married at a high mass there, as a matter of fact, and we left the church a couple of years ago, and we are now members of St. Joseph's in Newton, where we're very happy, and I am hoping with the, as things settle into hopefully a new phase of growth and development, that I can become active. I left an important thing out. I'm a faith community nurse, and that is a certificate program offered through St. Elizabeth's College, and I'll try to make the explanation of what a faith community nurse is as brief as possible. What it is a matter of combining faith and works, and expressing that in your practice within your church of origin, be it Catholic, Protestant, whatever. It's something had started. I had gotten approval for setting up a faith community workshop in my church, and then the pandemic came along and everything shut down. So it's still at a point where, with all the confusion over masks, no masks, or what's going on, that the church is not quite sure where they are with starting a program like that right now, but I am on the outlook for it, and certainly could be able to, I think, accommodate both my commitment to a seat on the Board of Education, as well as serving my church. I'm older, but I don't see myself at end of life. I see myself at the beginning of a new point in life, to the point where whatever life takes me, I would like to continue to give back to my community and the people and the children and the families within that community. One of my other interests is rescue animals. I work with Father John's Animal House, and we just lost our last, we just had one remaining animal, Casey. We called her Casey the Killer Cat, because she's an ardent huntress and mouser, and comes in the middle of the night caterwauling with her latest prey. We are not going to bring another animal into our home because life differences. Our animals live certain years, and we just lost our German Shepherd a couple of years ago, and trying to mix a new animal in with an older lifestyle is something that we just have to set aside, and I'll just have to get my pleasure of caring for animals through Father John's Animal Hospital. And I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have, we'll have 8 more questions for you, so that was just the first one, so thank you so much.
Okay. Would you let me sit?
You can sit, thank you.
Okay.
All right. So again, if you would tell us your name, a little bit about yourself, and yeah, that's it. Take as much time as you need for this question.
Hi, my name is Danielle Zilberry. I'm a lifelong Wantage resident, born and raised here. My kids go to the school district as well. I have 3. My older daughter is going to be a freshman at High Point, and my youngest is going to kindergarten. I am a realtor. I work for Kissel Realty out of Branchville, and I also do mobile notarizations for people that don't want to leave the house or can't leave the home.
Thank you.
We're gonna, Danielle, if you just could stay there for a second. I'm Colleen Manzan, I'm the Vice President. And number 2, the second question is, why do you want to serve on the Board of Education? And if appointed, what will be your priorities?
I know that there was an open seat, and I thought that I would take the opportunity to collaborate with the rest of the board and just, take a step back and listen to what the staff and the parents have to say and try to work towards, a good end for all the issues.
Thank you.
Pat,
You
you
can
can
move
move up.
Pat.
Back up to the podium. The same question, why do you want to serve on the Board of Education? And if appointed, what will be your priorities?
I've worked in many ways, I've worked in education, although it has been in the healthcare field as a registered nurse, lecturing and doing a lot of different things. And I have worked with, as I mentioned, I was in charge of adolescent substance abuse at St. Clair's Hospital, so I've worked with a younger population. I think right now, with all of the confusion that is surrounding not only our school system, but most of the different areas of endeavor that we're facing in our country right now, my goal would have to be familiarizing myself with the practices and principles of the school as it stands right now. I am frankly devoid of knowledge. I don't know what direction your school takes. I'm entirely new to a school education system. I'm not unused to public speaking or learning or a lot of other different things, but I would be my first goal would be to, if selected, would be to discover what the thrust of the Sussex-Wantage Regional School District is. Where are you in this rather odd conundrum of things that we've been handed in our country right now? Well, I have to get my feet wet with that and discover what the board's priorities are, what the school district's priorities are, and where I might fit in comfortably, and I hope it would be comfortably, in bringing the best we have to give our children, who have been, as the young lady before me said, a most difficult year for our children. It breaks my heart. When I go to Acme or ShopRite and I see 2-year-olds with masks on, I'm very, very upset. As a nurse, I know that it's scientifically unproven and unnecessary. Unless you want to wear an N45 respirator, there's not much you're going to do to prevent COVID from happening. It will take its natural course eventually. But our children have been really, really. My son Billy. My son Billy lives in Oregon, a most difficult state in which to live if you tend to be of a conservative bent. And my oldest grandson, Everett, is 9, Charlie is 6, and Vivian is 4. Charlie has an invasive ear tumor growing that they've been coping with, so he's disabled as a result of that. And my daughter-in-law has a PhD in human trafficking, earns more money than my son did, so Billy decided to stay home, and I still call him Billy. Decided to stay home and be a stay-at-home dad. And so he's been homeschooling the children and taking up that role. And they had to move out of Portland, and they're in Oregon City, and they hope to move even further out because of the disruptive nature of the state itself right now. So my son and I talk frequently about his difficulties and how hard it is raising children in this environment right now. They cannot afford childcare, even with step salary. So they made that choice for him to stay at home, and it's been rough. I haven't been able to go out to see them in a couple of years. I regard the airlines in a kind of hostile environment, and with all of the people beating each other up and all of the different things going on there, I just kind of held off, and we get in touch via computer and, you know, all the usual things that one does when you can't get in touch personally. But in speaking with my son and my daughter-in-law about the problems that they've dealt with, I feel rather close to home putting myself forward in this environment, because it does, as a grandmother, affect me in a very special way. And I'd like to do something, I think I've done significant things, but I'd like to do one more significant thing before I age out. And that's one of the reasons why I have made application for this.
Thank you so much. If you could just stay there again, Pat, we're just gonna keep taking
Yes.
turns back and forth. So the third question, which you've been very thorough, so you kind of have answered, but it's what particular experiences or skills have prepared you to serve as a board member?
I think I would have to say I have a particular grace in dealing with hot button issues. I mentioned that one of the areas in which I was, I went out in the communities, I worked with the police, I did all kinds of really crisis junkie stuff. And so I've learned to be patient with the process. I've learned to sit and listen and gather information before I contribute any thoughts I might have about the topic under discussion. So I think that would be one of the things that I would bring to the forefront here. I have the time to give to this. Other than Father John's and the church, I have more than ample time to devote to what I'm sure are very difficult tasks facing our school system right now. I grew up in a small town in Long Island called East Williston. It's I'm what was called the suburban American princess. And when my husband Paul was raised in West Virginia, and he wanted to move to West Virginia, and I thought people in West Virginia ate roadkill. And I said, I'm not moving to West Virginia. So he said, well, let's see if we can find West Virginia in Sussex County. And we did. We found it here. And I'm probably the first person that went to a farmyard auction at the DeGroote farm in patent leather shoes. Big mistake. I've learned since then not to do that. And living up here has led, I think life is a state of constant change. And if that change is in a positive, forward-moving aspect, then I think that is the place where I think I can offer the greatest experience. I grew up in a very wealthy town, Long Island, went to the Catholic Gift School, became a nurse after I had my children, and I see my life as an opportunity to move and grow and give back. I've been blessed with all that's gone on in my life and the losses I've experienced, and we've all experienced losses. I know if I spoke to each of you individually, I would find that to be the case. But from those losses, we either grow or we don't. And I feel that I've grown, and I don't feel that I'm ready to step aside right now and just, my husband's still working, he's not retired yet, another 2 years, he works for Picatinny, another 2 years he'll retire, and I don't see myself just staying at home and not contributing.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And,
Danielle.
Danielle can come forward. Thank you, Pat. So Danielle, what particular experiences or skills have prepared you to serve as a board member?
I just wanted to say that's very hard to follow. You speak, it flows. obviously I have kids in the district. I think that, I have my background is I was a restaurant manager for 15 years, so very fast paced, a lot going on. So I can definitely multitask. And that would be, this is multitasking, this is a full-time job that you're signing up for basically. So, my kids are getting a little bit older and I have the time and I want to take the opportunity to help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle, if you could just stay there, we're just gonna go to the next question. What is the board member's role and responsibility, and how does that role differ from the role of the superintendent or administration?
A role of the board member is just to basically sit and listen to the concerns of the parents, the staff, the students, and, everybody in the community. And try to get all aspects of the issues that are on the table and, deliberate a good response. I'm not 100% sure how it differs.
That's okay.
Some of these will get tough.
And that's okay. Thank you. And Pat, if you could go back up to the same question. What is the board member's role and responsibility, and how does that role differ from the role of the superintendent or administration?
Well, I see without any, I don't have any knowledge with which to provide you with that really well-rounded answer to that, but my preference would be that the superintendent of schools would be more distanced. It would be, let me use an analogy. I was often offered positions as a head nurse, and I consistently turned them down because being a head nurse meant that I would be involved with budgets and all kinds of different planning areas, growth for the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a bedside nurse, and even though master prepared, which I think augmented my role as a nurse, I want to be close to the children and the community. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm involved with budget meetings and all kinds of supervisory activities. I can be that, but I have chosen not to do that. So I would hope that a great part of what I would be doing, and I would try to forge it that way if I could, would be to see that I'm close to the students, close to the student body, and close to the family's needs and accessible to them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pat, if you could stay there. The next question is, what is the best way to address differences of opinion on the board?
Well, I would have to say that addressing differences of opinion has been my forte, because in crisis intervention, that's what I do. I never knew what I was going out to meet when I had situations that took me away from the crisis center, or when we came back to the crisis center with a patient that I had to interview and set up basically a very hasty treatment plan. And at this point, I actually was involved. There was a 5-year period where we could, what we call swoop and scoop. That is, take people from the community and put them into a psychiatric setting without their permission. Unfortunately, that went by the board and now has reappeared as they're looking at the defunding the police types of things. So I think you have to be, first of all, an extremely good listener, and before responding with any kind of gainful insight, make sure you have your fingers on all the keys.
Thank you. And then, if I could, Pat, if you could have a seat, and I'm going to ask Danielle the same question.
Mhm.
All right, Danielle, what is the best way to address differences of opinion on the board?
I think it probably would be a common thing to have a lot of differences, and you're always gonna agree with everything that your peers have to say, but just to be considerate and, don't speak abruptly, and at the end of the day, the, majority rules, you have to be respectful of other people's feelings.
Thank you so much. You can move on. Oh, you said.
Danielle, could you just get back up on, sorry about that, kind of giving you exercise tonight. What should our school district do to better prepare students as citizens?
As citizens, for example, or do you mean like preparing them for like a life role?
Yeah.
I think that it would be nice if the school did back with more of the classes that we had when we were kids. Like when I was in high school, I had Mrs. Hosback. I mean, here I had Mrs. Hosback, and she taught like cooking, cleaning, sewing, like life skills. I think that would be, key to life, instead of, I know they teach a lot of technology, which is obviously something it's a necessity today, but, like my daughter, for instance, is 13 and like can't do a lot of things that I did and was expected to do at that age.
Yeah, very good, thank you. Pat, the same question? What should our school district do to become, to better prepare students as citizens?
I think I would have to agree. I think that we need to roll back to a more, clearly if it isn't apparent to you, I am of a conservative bent. I would like to see our children brought back to a more basic skill sets that they can use as they move through the educational system. You're starting from K through 12, all right? And I would like to see a greater focus on history, understanding our Constitution. There are children who were born and raised here in the USA who can't pass a basic test that we give to people who are petitioning to become citizens here. And I think it's important that we move back to a solid foundation in a basic set of skills and then build on that and offer pathways. One of the things that makes my husband is an explosives engineer with Picatinny, so nurses tend to marry engineers or police officers for some reason, and that's statistically true. But what I like seeing is that Sussex County Community College is offering cuisine cookery, is offering how to put an engine together, offering really critical skills that are needed in the marketplace right now, where we need to have people with, my degrees are certainly, well, nursing is a very solid area, but counseling and philosophy and things like that, they're grand things to have, but how applicable are they to your life careers and what you're doing? I think sometimes we need something that is more hands-on, and I'm pleased to see that that is coming to some degree of fruition in our school system here in Sussex County, and I think as a rural community, we tend to move in that direction. We have farmers. I love it. I love talking about when the corn's coming in, and I love buying my fresh laid chicken eggs, and I see more and more people who are living on 5 to 8 acres of property such as we are, who are raising chickens and have goats and things like that, and that's, the connection to the land and those types of stuff. Love of the world is, I think, a really wonderful gift that we can give to our children, more than some of the, as my mother always said, and don't ask me where she got this from, airy fairy lily and kind of skills. Just something you could wrap your hands around and then actually pass on from generation to generation and increase in skills and knowledge as we go along, and treasure them. Treasure them.
We're just gonna have you stay right there.
Yeah, we have 3 more questions for both of you, but for you, Pat, right now, what do you see as the major issue or issues facing our school district?
I knew I was gonna be asked a question like this, and I had given thought about it while I was preparing to come here. Since this was a leap of faith applying for this position, and I can't answer specifically to that, because I'm not aware of where you've been. I have to know where you've been before I know where I think in my opinion, we should be going. I'm sure it's going to be significantly different based on pre-pandemic and post-pandemic settings. We're all, as parents, have been, not myself as a parent, but all of the younger people here as parents have been faced with incalculable problems, managing a family and jobs and children and all those things. So I think that I would have to first get my feet firmly on ground and in touch with the feedback I get from you as people who've been working in this field for some time, and hope that the skill that I bring from 30 years of practice can augment that, and I can learn and help provide some answers.
Thank you. All right, Pat, if you would have a seat, please.
Yes,
And
thank you.
I'm going to ask Danielle now. Danielle, what do you see as the major issue or issues facing our district?
I think the major issue is getting everybody back on track after COVID, and hopefully, getting back to like a regular full school week, and no interim cleaning and no masks, and there's parents are wondering why the teachers are getting paid a certain amount of money when they're sitting home, and there's been a lot of back and forth about that kind of stuff. But I mean, it seems like you guys have been doing a good job getting it back to where it was. And also, I think that bullying is an issue that is dealt with here on a daily basis. Off the top of my head, those are the 2 main.
Just stay right there, Danielle. We're gonna go on to the next. Given all the issues that arise, how can a board stay focused on improving student achievement?
I mean, I just keep plugging along and listening and trying to take everybody's the backlash from the community, the students, the teachers here. If you just listen to everybody, hopefully everybody can come to a response, and then just better the children. The whole point of this is to enhance the children and have a good school district for the kids. That's what we're here for. That's why we live in Wantage. That's why we want, we should want our kids to live here. It should be a nicely marketed area. I sell houses for a living, and I really pump up our school district, and I want to, believe that.
Thank you. Pat, same question. You can get up to the podium. Given that all the issues that arise, how can a board stay focused on improving student achievement?
Would you repeat that one?
Sure. Given all the issues that arise, how can a board stay focused on student achievement?
On school improvement.
Student
school.
achievement.
Excuse me?
Student achievement.
School achievement.
Student.
Achievement.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's going to be kind of a hard road to win right now, since we've been faced with so many unexpected and rather cataclysmic challenges to our personal lives, our family lives, our faith lives, and our school lives. And I think the Board of Education is really challenged right now to draw on all of the dedicated and knowledgeable voices of people who've been here serving the community in this setting, and hopefully joining with some new voices. And we have to be quick on our feet, you know, because it seems like every day something changes. You take, you know, the mask mandate, mask, no mask, this, that, you know, every day there's some other position put out there. And there's a lot of stumbling blocks that have been put in front of our simple, basic challenge, which is to educate our children harmoniously and see that they enjoy school maskless. No child, based on science, not politics, based on science, should be wearing a mask in school. I saw on one of the YouTube things I was watching recently where a high school runner crossed the finish line in record time, forced to wear a mask, and collapsed as she fell over the finishing line. This is ludicrousy. And we need to move away from that kind of thinking and start to think on a more practical, focused basis. We need to, I think it's going to be a challenge for everybody who's on the board or working within the school system to work together on setting identifiable goals and objectives, and do it in the, I think here is, we're just living in a rural community is just, I don't know, it's just the best. And I think we're the ones most likely to move forward to meet the challenges with our children more effectively than what we refer to as the children, quote unquote, down below. So I think we're going to be, we'll have less friction, more harmony. I hope that to be the case. And I hope we can pull ourselves up short when we're moving too far away from that objective.
Thank you, and just stay right there with our last question.
Yes, last question for you, Pat. How does a school board balance the need to provide a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer burden?
You know, it's funny, I called the, I think it was last year. I called the Sussex County, whatever. I'm a poll worker, but anyhow, I called them and I said, where exactly do our taxes go, please? I said, we have no amenities, we have well water, we have no sidewalks, we have no street lights, we have no police force, we have no have. Where does our money go? Our money goes to the school system, they said. And I said, well, I think I would like to know, and that was my first, if you will, little nudge toward, maybe I need to look into this a little bit and see what we could do. Because if indeed most of our money is going toward the school board and our children, the education of our children, no argument from me there. But I would need to become more familiar again with how that money is being spent. But I think we have a community that's pretty much on board, based on my friendships within the community and personal friendships and in the church, that, you know, when I talk with people, that is the case, that we're more together than we are apart. And I think that's a good jumping off point for us to start a new school year.
Thank you so much, Pat. If you would have a seat. And Danielle, if you would come up for the last question. All right, Danielle, how does a school board balance the need to provide a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer burden?
I think for the most part, for the most part, most people in this district have had their children go through this district, and they know that education is the most important aspect of their children's lives. And, you know, keeping the teachers happy, with their wages and getting new, fresh teachers in here or whatever it has to do, whether it be sports or, hiring, upping their money, just whatever it takes to make the kids, achieve their goals and make them, progress in life, and I think that that's the most important part.
Thank you so much. All right, ladies, that concludes the interview for the vacancy on the board. What we're gonna do now is go into an executive session for some agenda items. We will deliberate in executive session, and then we will be back out of executive session and make a decision on which of you will fill the vacancy. And then we will go through the agenda items and the rest of our business. That being said, can I get a resolution, please, Mrs. Riker, for executive session?
Whereas pursuant to NJSA 10-4-12B, the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education may exclude the public from that portion of a public meeting at which the board discusses any of the matters described at NJSA 10-4-12B 1-9. Now therefore be it resolved that the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education shall enter into closed session to discuss Donaldson hearing, Wantage open seat, and legal matters. Now therefore be it further resolved by the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education that pursuant to NJSA 10-4-13B, the time when and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public is when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Thank you. Looking for a motion, please?
Motion.
Looking for a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We will be back within 45 minutes, hopefully, and At this time, I'm gonna look for a motion, to fill the vacancy on the Board of Education.
I'll make a nomination.
Nomination, sorry.
Danielle Silberry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, and then are there any other nominations? All right, the roll call, Mrs. Bennett?
Ms. DeWall Malachite? Yes. Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Mr. Giuliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
And Mr. Diaz?
Yes. All right,
Nomination is approved.
thank you, Mrs. Riker. I just want to say, congratulations to Mrs. Zilberry, but I wanted to thank Pat, so much for your time. This was a very difficult decision, and unfortunately, the board has to pick one or the other. Personally, I was very inspired by your story and what you've overcome in your life, and I do think you have a heart for service. So I would love to see you, serve in an aspect in our community. And again, this is a short term, that we're till the end of the year, but certainly encourage you to be a part of the process in the community. And just thank you for coming out. We really appreciate it. At this time, I think we're going to do the oath, right? All right, so at this time, we're going to do the oath of office. Mrs. Riker is going to administer it to Mrs. Zilberry, so if you'd come up, please.
Probably come up here to make sure better. So, I could read it with you, but you could just read it yourself, so it's. You don't have to say that. You need to do both of those.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. I, Danielle Silberry, do solemnly swear that I support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under authority of the people, so help me God. I, Danielle Zilberry, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by the law for office of member of a Board of Education, and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 4-1, nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations, Danielle.
And just, listen, but not to.
Thank you again, Pat. So, I don't know, Mrs. Riker told you if you reviewed the resolutions, I believe you're more than welcome to vote. Otherwise, she could abstain, or she can't vote. Or she cannot vote, I'm sorry. So she abstains, or she cannot even do that? Not even do that. Okay. Sounds good. All right, at this time, we will move on to the presentation of agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. D'Agostino. Under personnel, I'd like to move items 1 through 23.
Looking for a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on personnel? All right, roll call, please.
Ms. DeWall Malachite? Yes. Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Mr. Giuliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele? Yes. Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Under policy, I'd like to move items 1 through 5.
Looking for a motion, please.
I'll motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on policy? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Ranzan?
Yes.
Ms. Newell Malfoy? Yes. Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Mr. Juliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Sure, yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under finance, I'd like to move items 1 through 28.
Looking for a motion? Thank you. Second,
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the first?
Mrs. Steele. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Steele? Yes. Mr. Juliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Ms. Newell Malfoy? Yes. Mrs. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under special services, I'd like to move item 1.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Newell Malfoy? Yes. Mrs. Cooper Trinidad? Yes. Mr. Juliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele? Yes. Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
And Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Referring to the addendum under personnel, I'd like to move items 1 through 3.
All looking for a motion?
I'll motion.
Any, looking for a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mr. Juliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper Trinidad?
Yes.
Ms. Newell Malfoy? Yes. Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
And Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Once again, referring to the addendum, I'd like to move items 1 through 4 under policy.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
You looking for a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just want to say that, under the school calendar, it kind of like, I didn't notice that we were going to start on a Friday, so, Ms. Whitty and I talked to Mr. Gall, and, that's why that is on there, and I apologize to the public for not catching that before.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for catching that. I don't think anybody minds the 4-day weekend, right?
All right, did we get a second?
Yes.
Yeah. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Sorry. Further discussion, that counted.
Thank you.
All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Newell Malfoy? Yes. Mrs. Cooper Trinidad? Yes. Mr. Juliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Ranzan?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele? Yes. Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
With that, Mr. D'Agostino, Mrs. Ranzan, I just wanted to thank the board for their continued support. And if you'd all join me in recognizing our new district RTI coordinator, Mrs. Sarah Mott. You got anything you want to say, Mom?
Congratulations. Mr. Gall, and we, on behalf of the board, I'm sure I speak for everyone, we're excited to have you be the face of our district for 5 more years. Mr. Gall, again this year, had a exemplary evaluation, and I believe did a stellar job leading our district through obviously a tough time for everybody. But you know, he's a great communicator, and the community loves him, the teachers love him, the board loves him, and we are very excited to say he will be here for 5 more years. So congratulations, Mr. Gall, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, and I appreciate the sentiment, but it's obvious that, you know, I can't do it without the staff and the parents and the stakeholders of the Board of Education, so I appreciate it.
All right, this time we will move on to unfinished business. Does anyone on the board have any unfinished business they would like to discuss?
I do. Thank you for getting this to me, Mr. Gall, or getting it to us. This is the sub-rates for the county. And I do, along with Mrs. Whitty, and pull you with me, feel like we need to match a lot of these rates, especially Frankfurt, what they pay, High Point, Lafayette. Vernon, you don't have, but it's $125 for a teacher. So I really like by the next board meeting, some numbers for us, please.
Yeah, so I think in the rundown over the next week or so, we'll come up with kind of a price point and get your feedback on it and have something on the agenda for next.
Thank you.
As I see this, my concern was always like regular substitute teachers, but as I'm looking at this now, I feel like we need to take care of this ASAP under the secretarial rates.
At least up to, New Jersey's statement.
I think that you would look at this point, you would look at all rates and,
Yeah.
Make adjustments as necessary and not just do it for one group of the entire.
Right, but I'm saying that, you mentioned that I brought this up almost 3 years ago now. And, my focus was on regular substitutes, as we know that, teacher substitutes. But looking at this and realizing the secretary rates, even a TA rate, where I don't know where that falls legally. So, if it's outside of our legal walls, then we need to fix that immediately.
Thank you, Mrs. Woody. Is there any other unfinished business?
Oh, no, that's new business.
All right, here you go, Mrs. Ranzan. We'll move on to new business.
I pass by the Sussex Middle School every day, almost. Why isn't that sign marked?
I thought there was a component that's on order, but I'll double check.
Oh, the electronic sign? There is.
Yeah.
The board, the board approved either at the last meeting or it was on this meeting, because it was a substantial part.
That was a substantial sign.
So, if it was on the last meeting,
No.
PO is already in order, but
Okay.
we are addressing it this time.
Because it was an expensive sign.
It's probably old business, but the ramp, is it complete?
I believe we're waiting on some additional railing.
Okay, and I think somewhere I heard in there that it was 6 inches too deep, and Frank was asking for a retaining wall, small retaining wall. Are we good with this, or? I noticed there was hay on top of, I guess, grass seed, but are we going to get like a small retaining wall too with that, or?
I think we have to continue to talk about that.
So the grass is planted.
I thought I noticed the initials BW in the concrete. Did you have anything to do with that?
What?
I did notice erosion though the last time I had heavy rain.
All right, any other new business? Seeing none, we will move on to audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district. Are there any audience remarks? Seeing none, we do not have any need for another executive session, thankfully, so I will look for a motion to adjourn.
Almost.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.